started off, as Adam will share in a few minutes, the resilience of women, our trials and tribulations, things that we've gone through. And this really affected a lot of us women who are mothers. And so part of what the Chamber is doing through these type of programs is to ensure that our voices are heard, that we have a platform in like today's platform where we can share and discuss our stories, because it's really important. It's really at the core of who we are. And I heard something as I was sharing with Anna earlier today about being a victim. You stop being a victim the day you start to talk about it, the day you start to kind of bring to light the things that you've gone through, because at that point is where you pivot. And these amazing ladies have certainly pivoted, not just through the pandemic, but their entire lives. There's something that we will learn from them, that we will have golden nuggets to take away, to not just inspire us today, tomorrow, the future, and our children. So enough about that. I will want to introduce Anna Salceda.
As Olivia mentioned, this was long overdue. During COVID, all we had is each other on Zoom, right? We wanted to make sure that we got to see somebody and have something tangible, even if it was just the emotion of knowing we were not in this alone. And so we had a funder from Union Bank. She's no longer there. Her name is Sylvia Castillo. And she was very, very supportive of women programs. So when I called her and she was willing to fund this, most of you know that she had a heart for women. That's the only reason we did it. I mean, I think it's most important, but I think the fact that she was able to bring light to the fact that no time like then, that we could do it for women. So resilience is such an amazing word. She allowed me to run with it, but when we would take calls, we would hear that face, even if we didn't see it, through the emotion of, do I close my doors? My kids are here, I'm trying to run business at my home, and they don't go to school, and all these things, and how do I manage all these struggles? But it wasn't just women who had children, it was all women. And it was a beautiful time to really allow people like these two women, especially women, to give a voice of resilience, to be bold, and to be honest, and to be vulnerable, and to be sad, and to be victorious, and to be defenders and warriors. There was such strength in what we spoke about, and we rose together, and we all fell together. The first one was pretty cool because I think I'm a DJ, and so I always have really cool music, and everybody was crying by the time I finished. I'm like, okay, that's not gonna work next time. But it's because we're also emotional, and music does that to us, right? And so these two just rose and shined like no other, and I can't get enough of either of them. I just love, them. I see them constantly in their life, whether it's personal or just professionally. You're just both just an example to us, and no better example of resilience. And we don't have enough time for them to share. Hopefully, this is the first of a few, but. I don't want to take any more time. This is Loriann Serna. Most of you, if you haven't, follow her on Instagram. She is a phenomenal entrepreneur with her husband right here, Hedrick. They do a phenomenal job. Wife of the party. And I don't even know what how to explain it. She's going to have to do that. But I am so proud of what they do. And they still find time to be a part of this chamber. They still find time, maybe 2 times last week, they were feeding the families at Ronald McDonald House, which I'm on the board there, so I just loved it. It was so beautiful to see. Took all her crew, everyone that she works with, you all took your crew, your children, so I love that you're teaching them life lessons, another part of resilience. Christina, oh my goodness, this woman, she has my heart. She is someone who has been through the community many years. I've been in the community in nonprofit. She was always a face of what was most important, whether it was at Univision, now at AltaMed. She always finds a way to help. And so without further ado, we need to fill our souls, fill our hearts.
Wow, how do I follow that?
That's not even enough.
Okay, so pardon the tears, by the way. So, las lágrimas se valen, okay? Even though we all grew up saying never cry. So, I really want to hand it to Olivia, to Anna, for your light, for trusting us, and for seeing us for who we are, in the good, the bad, and the ugly, because boy, we can ugly cry as well. So my job is to moderate this afternoon, and because I love to moderate, because I love to talk. Me encanta hablar, no? And Loriann is really the star of today. We're going to get to know what resilience is. The first resilience we did, the Faces of Resilience, was virtual, as we talked about, and it was during the pandemic. It was during a very dark time for so many. For others, you remodeled your houses, you built a pool, and for others, we lost loved ones. We weren't able to bury them, and we have to be reminded that we lost 1.1 million people in the United States. And although we are in revenge mode and we're out and about, we're partying, we're traveling, we cannot forget what we went through and what we continue to go through. And for all those families who lost loved ones that are still grieving, that are very much in my heart. So, like I said, pardon the tears. I prayed upon today. I reflected, because every single morning I ground myself and I think about what can I offer this group of people. Some of you who've been with me since my 30 years in my career in television, the paths that we cross, my journey, you're very much part of me because you've all taken a part of my heart. Rita, you and I have gone through it all, from your husband being in the assembly up until now. We're going to start from the beginning. So I'm going to tell a little bit about myself, my beginning, because it also tells you where I come from. I was born in the United States, Panorama City, California, a little city in the San Fernando Valley, Kaiser Permanente. At 4 years old, my parents decided that they don't want to raise us here. They were not happy. We lived in Pacoima with the quality of education, the quality of where we lived, and my parents could pick us all up. We were 4, and we went to go live in Mexico. So my upbringing is in Mexico City. O sea, sí, soy chilanga, no? It kind of went away. But to me, I grew up really as a native Mexican. I actually never knew that I was born in the United States until I came back to the US and I was 12. I came back to the San Fernando Valley. I went to all the schools there, San Fernando Junior High School. I'm dating myself because now they're middle schools. San Fernando High School, some of my colleagues from San Fernando are here. And to me, it was that immigrant experience. I came in, I didn't know the language. What was I? Una burra, una mensa. So they put me back a grade because I didn't know the language. There was no bilingual education. So to me, it was swim or sink. I had to really assimilate so much that I forgot my Spanish. And in college, I was like, caray, I could be much more marketable if I learned my Spanish again. But through that flight, imagine being a young lady, an adolescent, and you're being told that you're a wetback and you're a wada and that you're dumb. And you really, really take that to heart. And I remember ending up in the nurse's office because I wanted to be sick, because I didn't want to be there. I just wanted to hide under the desk. And those were really, really trying times. So I can tell you that was resilience as a 12-year-old, as a 15-year-old, and now as a bleep-year-old. I see lots of resilience. But that was a little bit of me and where I come from, where I grew up. Loriann, tell us where you come from, because that's going to tell us a little more about you.
Okay. Well, first, I also want to thank you all for being here with us today. I'm the complete opposite. Not as much a fan of speaking, but very privileged to be here and also continuously challenging myself with things that make me better and stronger, because you can't love everything. Some things are good for you, even if it's not something that you want to do. I did want to be here, but this is also a great practice role for me, so thank you for your patience and excitement and belief in both of us and all of us here. So thank you. I grew up in South Pasadena, and we were actually talking a little bit about my family backstage. And my parents are mixed. My mom was Caucasian and my dad is Mexican. And I was raised in a very white environment. And I was told to stay away from El Sereno where the cholos were, not to wear red lipstick, and not to marry a Mexican man. And here he is. He's from Southgate.
You can't get more Mexican than Southgate, by the way.
And we were just talking about the difference in how we were raised, and our children currently, my children attend school where they speak Mandarin and Spanish. It's important to me. The culture is important to me. It's important that they learn about other cultures and that they're respectful to everyone about their time, culture, and family. As I grew up, I realized that there were so many things that I did not know, and I'm almost ashamed to say it, but I didn't know that there was people in really bad situations that were around me. My mom did not really do it on purpose, but she didn't expose me to a lot of the challenges that other people had. I wasn't quite aware of community service through her. It came from school or Girl Scouts or other things, and there's nothing wrong with that. She was busy working and raising me, but I learned as I started to see what was actually out there outside of my direct community that it was something from the beginning that I wanted to be involved with. And something that I shared earlier when we were back there was that my husband's mom used to foster babies that were born into drug situations. And some of the experiences with my husband's upbringing really blew my mind. I couldn't believe that so many people would have to share a room in a tiny apartment. Not because I was ignorant, I guess I was ignorant to it. And that bothered me. It bothered me that people didn't have the same opportunities. They weren't presented with the same opportunities that I was given. And I also really learned as I tended to grow closer to people that were not as fortunate, that I loved the way that their families, nothing was a big deal. They had togetherness, they had family, they had faith, whatever it was. You know, I could go to my friend's house and her mom would say, come in and have no money and make us all something to eat. Or my mom was a little different. Everything had to be planned and it had to be so meticulous and you have to ask in advance. So I started to see that as I grew to treat my friends like my family that I didn't have, and it was the most incredible thing that my mom probably could have done for me, because it made me really see how much I loved people and how much I wanted to grow outside of my own community.
Are you an only child?
I am.
Okay, so that's very different. I'm one of 6, by the way. This tells you when my mom brought the sucaritas, the frosted flakes, we were all fighting over the frosted flakes. And very, very different. 4 males, 2 females. I was with my 2 brothers, so I was a big tomboy. I always was competing with them. And so,
I don't believe that.
yeah. By the way, I beat them all the time. I learned how to whistle without my fingers, like, not one seriously. I learned to, just balancing. I think women just have overall better core, better balance. I was always better than them, but being very competitive. It also tells you a lot about yourself if you grow up as a single child too, because you're not exposed to that. So thanks to Herrick and his family, and your mother, by the way, and what she did in fostering those children. Okay, tell us, after growing up around Pasadena, how does Wife of the Party get started? What career trajectory took you to that?
That's actually, I guess it's your lucky day that you came to hear all these nice compliments, because that is my husband. I worked in corporate, and we were always in the nightlife business. Herrick was a very successful DJ, and he still is, but growing up.
DJ name?
Herrick.
DJ name?
Don't be embarrassed now, it was all in the flyers, we've all seen them.
I'll be back.
But, you know, after we had, we have 4 children, 4 daughters, and I'm a mother above all else. I didn't introduce myself as that, but I always say that. I'm a mom and I'm a wife, and that is my primary role. I absolutely love motherhood. I'm psycho about it. My children and my family are my life, and even talking about them, that makes me teary-eyed, because everything that I do for them, including educating myself, talking to other people, talking about generational wealth, a lot of things that we'll probably touch on today, and things that my family didn't teach me, right? So he said, you know, we need to kind of do something else. I want to do something together. And after the whole real estate nonsense and everything was just kind of all over the place, Herrick was also working in real estate. He said, I think you should quit your job and come work with me, and we should do parties. And I said, that's absolutely the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And I really did. He said, okay, he'd kind of leave me alone. And then he tried it again a little bit later. And then after we had Francesca, he used to actually bring her to me twice a day at my corporate job so that I could breastfeed her. He would bring me the baby, I would feed her, he would take her home, then come back and have lunch with me, and then he'd do it again every afternoon for years. I breastfed her for almost 4 years, 4.5 years. So I decided one day that I just didn't want to do that anymore, and I was very envious that he was able to do something he was passionate about and spend time being a father, which is what his number one, he's the best thing that he ever has done is fatherhood. He's a great dad. And I decided that I was going to quit. And I was going to do this with him, but we had absolutely no plan, not that I recommend that. And so we started calling people and telling them that we were throwing parties, right? I mean, for the most part.
We were in the event business, yes.
Yeah, we were in the event business, but it was parties. It was like backyard bookies, sleepovers, whatever I could get my hands on. So that's how it started, and I just finally said, okay, I'm willing to do this, and I think that I had hit a point where I didn't have anything to lose because I wasn't happy where I was. So I think that everybody has to have a moment, whether it's like a fitness journey for someone or, you know, changing a job, whatever it is. There was no true reason other than I didn't like where I was and I refused to stay there. And I was going to figure it out. And if you have that kind of mentality, I believe that you can do anything, whether it's personal, whether it's work. And there's never been a better time than now with social media and Instagram and groups like this and days like this, where you can actually hear people encourage you to do it versus pushing it away and telling you not to do it. Because for me, you know, I'll be 46 years old and I grew up where it was like, you can't do that, that's dumb, you need a 401k. And there's nothing wrong with your parents telling you that either, trying to set you up for success. But also, you can have that 401k and still do this, or you can have a side job and do X, Y, Z, and there's a lot of options and ways to get you there to where you're truly happy.
I don't think it was always rosy, and especially
No,
with
horrible.
event planning and reaching out to people who are going to have budgets for events planning, because most of us, it's like, tráete la piñata, tráete la cerveza, y que se arme la fiesta, no? And that's usually what we do. Tell us about what success, what failures you had, what obstacles, and what you learned from those.
I actually have a really good story about that as far as a big setback, I would like to call it. And we do have failures, but this was a setback for us. So we started working out of our home, and then it got to the point where it really wasn't quite safe to have people and strangers kind of in and out of our house with the kids and everything. And we found this little building on Main Street in Alhambra. It was a wreck, our first office. It had rubble, I'm not kidding, up to here from concrete floors. And the guy was gonna give it to us for $1,200 a month. And this was, believe it or not, 7 years ago. 7 years ago. And I asked him and he said, okay, let's go for it. And we had, I was just saying, we had no savings. We had a mason jar in our dining room where we had our savings because we have, you know, our kids are 27, 23, 9, or 10, and 5. And we did live very much check to still put them through private school and do all this stuff. So it was a big risk for us. We moved in there, fixed it up, and I had one employee at the time, one full-time employee, which was a really big, you're responsible for their livelihood. And we started to acquire more equipment. So he used to stuff speakers in his 2-seater car. Then I sold stock in my company right before I left, and we bought his uncle's old carpet van that our kids were embarrassed that we would take him to school in. And the mom and me was like, I don't give a shit if you don't like it, get in this car, this is how you're getting to school. And then one time I punished one of them for her birthday and I put cans and stuff on it. We went into piñatas and candy out of it. Bang banda. Because I was like, you're gonna appreciate what your family works hard.
Now they would be really popular, by the way.
I think so too. She died a little bit. But you know, we did that, and so we started acquiring more equipment, and what would happen is we would do something, say you called me for a party, something wasn't done right, somebody didn't show up for you, right? I was like, well, we'll figure it out, we'll find a solution. And it wasn't that we were so good at what we did, it's that I cared about the people that we were involved with. And if I was going to be there with you, I was going to make it worth both of our while. And if something went wrong, I was going to find a solution, because that's a person thing, it's not a business thing. And so we had acquired quite a bit of equipment. And my husband, bless his heart, doesn't always listen to me. And he was bringing the truck home back and forth to our house. And I was working in Atlanta. This was, what, 3 years ago? It was probably the biggest setback for us, 3 years ago. Somebody broke into our house, and he had offloaded all of our equipment, almost $90,000, and they took it all. In less than 5 minutes, right, when they finally got the camera from across the street. We never recovered it. We learned a couple hard lessons, and there's a whole story to this long story. The first is that our insurance didn't cover it because we didn't have the proper business insurance, and it was called marine insurance. So our insurance was covered at the office, but it wasn't covered in my home. How many people have a business that don't know about that? 80%, you know, and I learned this as I talk to people more. So there goes everything, right? The heart to the floor, oh my gosh, we're gonna get it. It was awful, for lack of a better word. So then a couple days later, he looked at me and was like, what are you up to? And I said, we need a bigger office, we need a warehouse. I don't care what we have to do, we need to get it, we need to figure it out, we need to make the money, this is what has to happen. We found a huge warehouse, happened to just, honestly, I would drive around every single day. I drive and look and drive at lunchtime every day. Found the nicest man, made him an offer, he took it, and we just started replacing things one by one. And since those 3 years, God has graced us tremendously. We've probably grown our business 800%. We went from making a few $1,000s to a multi-million-dollar company. And the only thing that I can say aside from the hard work is I am very faithful. I also believe that you do good, you get good. You know, everything that you move with, I try to move with intention. But that was the biggest setback for me, because had I given up and just said, screw it, we're not gonna reinvest, and he didn't believe in me and we weren't gonna do it, we would not have anything. Because I can't see myself doing anything else that I'm more passionate about. And I'm not kidding you, that pushed me to start to ask questions to people that were smarter than me, Tell me about insurance. What do I need to never have that happen again, right? And if it does, how am I protecting myself and my staff and my people? Because now we have a big company with a lot of bodies that we are responsible for, and it's my job to make sure that I'm doing things right. So that was probably the biggest setback that affected a lot of other things, but that also gave the most growth. And I am forever grateful that it also happened, because it took me even further out of the comfort zone. And had that not happened, what would have happened later? It could have happened at any given time. And it probably could have destroyed us in a different capacity. So sometimes those disasters are a real blessing.
Well, we can see that that turned out positive without a doubt. This is why it's important for the entities like the chamber
Very true.
to be able to give us information on our business as we see our community continuing to grow. So again, big love for the chamber, to Daryl, to Anna. For
Take those
everything
classes,
that you do.
those seminars, even if you try to forget this, especially about labor laws. Labor laws are a big one. I mean, it's so, I wish that someone would have told me about things like this, because it probably could have saved me a lot of heartache.
Well, absolutely. Every piece of legislation affects your employees,
It
whether
does.
they're independent contractors or not. And so they have a good legislative team that's always looking out for policy and how they can help you.
Yes.
We talk about people, we talked about organizations. There's people in your life that have been instrumental, besides Herrick, obviously, and your 4 babies. But there are others that you trusted one way or the other with your capital, with money, and there are, I'm sure, betrayals as well. Tell us a little bit about the people in your journey.
Well, I will speak to one other thing that I think is valuable for business owners or for anybody, and I'll start with the betrayal. This actually happened quite recently. And I'm always happy if anyone has questions about this, like further in detail. I'm happy to call you for coffee, which if I can share this experience with you, I'm happy to, because it's not something that we talk about online or publicly, because you have to be careful what you say. But another example, last year we had an employee that we were very, very good to. And I never didn't have a handbook because I didn't want to have an employee handbook. I just thought, hey, you want to be here, you're going to show up, you're getting paid great, we take good care of you, you're going to do your job, and we're all aligned, you know? So we had an employee that got drunk on his birthday and didn't show up for work. Fine. If he would have apologized or just been honest, things happened, whatever. He didn't, he lied to me, and it became this whole thing, and he never showed up for work, and we had to let him go. And he turned around and hit me with an $80,000 lawsuit. But aside from the money, the bigger concern was him getting the labor people involved and saying that we weren't running our business correctly. Thankfully, we were, because I had already protected myself, but we, it could have turned into an absolute disaster. We ended up winning the case. We didn't have to worry about that, but we learned at that point, wow, we need an employee handbook. Wow, our employees need to be sexually harassment trained. They have sexual harassment training. They need to have COVID training. There's protocol to what happens when your employees call in with COVID. It doesn't matter if you have 2 employees or if you have 1,000, and compliance is such a big deal that this also goes back to being a member here and everything else. That could have gone completely the other way. And I think that I did take it to heart. I felt so betrayed. Like, how could you do this to us when you're lying? You're the one that didn't come to work. But then we learned a lot of lessons about on your break time. Hour 1 to hour 5, you have to have this amount of time, and just things that continue to bless me by me learning before it's a bigger disaster. But it happens to more people than you think, and not because they don't mean well, but because you just don't know. And I think knowledge on how you build your business is imperative.
I think one of the biggest lessons there is people that you trust, people that you hire, people that you work with, people that you trust your business or decisions to. I think the main lesson is never stop working with heart. Because there's no doubt that Herrick and Loriann do things with heart. They provide employment. They, of course, make memories for all these incredible special events for people. Let's touch a little bit about social media. You talked about it and how important it is. Our businesses cannot do without social media. Our personal brands are defined by social media. But many times, from a personal standpoint, nobody's going to go on and say, boo-hoo today, blah, blah, blah. It's like, look at me, I'm at the City Club today, when this is maybe like the first time you've ever been here. It's like, I'm a baller today, okay? It's a life that is really not true, that people live. And how do we get through what people expect to see from you, what the reality is, and the toxicity behind social media?
That's a great one. I have a mentor, he's one of our clients, and I talk about him every opportunity that I have. His name is Dan Fleischman. If none of you are available or are familiar with him, when you leave here, or when you have a moment, take that phone out, look him up, look at his Instagram. His name is Dan Fleischman. He's an absolute genius. Right? Is that how you explain him? And his whole everything he does, he gets paid $500,000 to speak about social media. Isn't that mind-blowing? It's just incredible to me that people have so much value in the meat of what he actually has to say. And he was the one that gave me the best advice. So I'm always running around. I'm not even gonna lie, there's nothing graceful or pretty about it. Today I had my hair blown out, my makeup on because I wanted to come look really presentable.
And you're totally rocking it, by the way. So.
And I was excited about it, but I like my role behind the scenes. And so I feel like authenticity is important in social media, and it should align with your moral compass and who you are. And for people that are business owners, you are the face of your brand. And people are more invested in who you are than your brand because that is what you are. And he had mentioned that to me. So he said, just do what you do. But as people grow, I don't know what business everyone here is in, but I'll give you a perfect example. When I was pregnant with Luca, our youngest, I would work at Coachella and I was breastfeeding her sometimes, and she would, he'd be wearing her around at work. So that was very relatable to people with young children or who were pregnant or who wanted some inspiration, juggling both because it's hard, right? So like, hey, how do they do it? It's kind of, crazy to see them do it, and I can do that too, where things are attainable. But then once the baby grows and that person's not pregnant anymore, now what am I serving them in my social media that can help them relate to me? Is it about my marriage? Is it about my job? Is it like, what happens as you grow? So as you grow your business, the best thing to do is to grow the messaging that you're sending out to people, because there's all kinds of different people watching you. If you think about it, I don't have a tremendous following, but we have 69,000 followers. That's enough to fill a stadium. So if you look at that, you think about it visually is what he told me. Look at the different types of people that are there. Look at the different types of people here with us today. What kind of messaging are you sending out? If you're authentic and your best self, do it, but do it consistently. Just like you get up to go to the gym every day, do it every day. And that's what I do. I think I have posted on social media every single day for a good 16 years. Wouldn't you say? So a lot of brands have come back to me and said, it wasn't so much, Lori, that you had the experience, but it was that you were consistent. I didn't care if I had the tiniest little project, I was proud of it. And I posted it, even if people laughed at me, and they did. I had a lot of people that really laughed when we named our company Wife of the Party, because they thought it was dumb. And I had planners that I respected be really rude and hurtful to me. But I didn't let it slow me down. I'd come cry to him about it, and I'd say, they were mean, and I just wanted to meet them or take a picture, and people were really mean to me. But I was consistent, and that ended up being what gave us a lot of the opportunities, because people were far more willing to hire someone who's consistent than not. So if it's your business, you want to talk about it at every opportunity, and all of these are free. LinkedIn, use it. Even if you don't want to do it, hire someone to do it for you. It's the biggest and best investment that you can ever do.
I think it's called curating social media these days, by the way. So I'm at AltaMed Health Services. I think some of you know it's this little community clinic that's been around for about 54 years now. It started with one East LA Barrio Clinic on the Boulevard with a couple of a mason jar collecting money, and our leader, Castro de la Rocha, to now, almost 54 years later, 51 clinics, 500,000 clients, Orange County, all because of a vision. And that, of course, he was part of a movement, which was the Chicano movement. He marched. It was El Movimiento Estudiantil, not adequate health access, health education, etc. But our upbringing, we talked a little bit about our upbringing, and you talked about your mom. But our morals and our values are also shaped by that, okay? One of 6 siblings. I remember my father very clearly said, Mija, tú, la educación, no te vas a ir al college. Tus hermanos, your brothers are going, and my savings are going to go for them. And I was like, well, what about me, Dad? I want to go to college, and I think I'm college material. And he was saying, no. You're going to get married, you're going to be taken care of. So by that time, I think resilience was very much in my vocabulary, because I said, I see, you're not going to help me, I'm going to do this on my own. So this is when I got into debt, took some loans out, and I did it on my own, and so did my sisters, by the way. Fast forward, Dad's gone, but the most successful in our family are all the girls, by the way. Why? Los cojones que nos dio mi papá, I mean, seriously, but that to me, it's like, you can't tell me I cannot. And it stayed with me throughout. And then we talk about breastfeeding your baby, very, very different generation. You get chastised for having a baby.
It's just still like that.
No, I'm sure they come up to you and it's like, leche. I mean, they're already talking when you're breastfeeding. Trust me, mine was 18 months old. She's like, yeah. My brothers were like, you're disgusting. I'm like, it's perfectly natural to breastfeed a child. So nowadays, it's very different. It's very, very accepted. But being pregnant, having a child, and working, and that life-work balance, there is no balance. There was never for me. My kids are 30, Jacqueline, Camila, who's 27, and Victor, who's 22. A lot of you know them since they were babies, by the way. But what's it like for you as a mother, and that guilt that we talk about, perhaps, and how do you balance that in your life with your 4 beautiful daughters?
To be honest, this might come off a little rough, but I don't actually feel guilt. I love going to work, and everything that I do is for our family. And in order to stay grounded when I feel challenged, because I do, when I get tired, I cry, I miss them, I miss the kids, but I also have never wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. It's just not for me. And I didn't go without anything. My mom did not provide for me, but she didn't raise me talking to me about why she did things and how she did things. And so for me, I don't feel guilt because I know that everything that I'm doing for them, and they see and I lead by example, just like I lead my team. I show up at the office before my team and I leave after them. Herrick will already have the kids home, fed, and bathed by the time that I roll in. So I decided I needed to make some changes so that I didn't feel guilt, but that I felt a different sense of commitment. And I've learned very recently that the way that you shape how you say things is really what you believe, and that's what I'm working on. My word this year is intention. I intend to speak about what I mean, the right way, use the right words that are impactful and meaningful, and think about what I'm saying. And I think that some days are harder than others, but the value in having your own job is I can make it to most of their school things, I can participate, I can donate, I can contribute. But I do miss a lot of things that I probably wouldn't have missed with the older girls. But I don't believe that you can get ahead as quickly as you need to now with so much competition out there without working really hard at it. And a lot of people, I think, I don't like the messaging that they send out on Instagram, like, you don't have to do this. I'm not saying to kill yourself either, that's not at all what I'm saying, but I speak about my brand every chance I get. I think about it every chance that I get. I refocus every chance that I get, and then I do the things that are powerful for my family, like cooking the hot meals and making sure I take time to reset. But I don't feel guilt, and I talk openly with them about what we're doing, why mommy's working this weekend, and our regular schedule just looks a little bit differently than their friends. And as long as we're talking about it, it makes it very easy.
Intentional, purposeful, super, super helpful. We always see each other, and I say, Rita, I'm gonna call you. I promise. I haven't seen you in 6 years, and I promise I call. A year goes by, I never did that. This year, people that I have come across, and I have seen more of Anna, and if I can't, I know she's always inviting me, but I want to be purposeful in what I do and what I say. So if I've seen you, I haven't seen you, if we haven't gotten together in the next quarter, reach out and please hold me accountable. That's super, super important. Honesty and sincerity, and having those conversations. Through my journey, I had to have some honest conversations with people that I felt, oh, I can't tell her that because she's very sensitive and she's gonna get hurt and she's gonna fall apart, yet I would keep it inside. And I learned that I had to open up and tell them what I was feeling based on their actions. That was a very hard thing for me to do because I lost some friends because of it, because they literally said, how could you? I said,
They did you a
just
favor
telling me.
going away?
Yes, in a way, and I learned through therapy, by the way, which is a great thing, learning about myself, is that there are friendships and there are people that have run its course. They gave you what they needed to give you, and then you move on and they stay there. And I realized that that's what was happening in my life, and I'm like, but I've known you for 40 years, and it's like, there was no reasoning with that person, and I just needed to go on versus stay in my hot loneliness, which is what I call it. Hot loneliness. This is the Glennon Doyle.
I think that you touched on something really important there. Having difficult conversations. I don't know anyone that says, I love to have difficult conversations. I like going to work and I like being a leader, but I don't like being a manager. I don't want to micromanage my team. I don't find joy in it. I don't want to have to tell them what's wrong because I just assume that people want to show up and do their best. And difficult conversations make me uncomfortable, but I do them because I have to. And I relate so much to my husband because we work together every single day, and our biggest argument is, you make me the bad guy, right? I'm always the bad guy. But it's not that, it's that I'm learning that if I don't have those conversations, then I'm doing all of this in vain. And going back to Dan, he was the one that had told me that. Last year, I also had another employee that betrayed me terribly. She went so far as to share budget sheets and things thinking that she was going to get me into a bit of trouble with a client because she didn't like that I called her out for not doing something properly. And my client turned around and completely had my back and said to her, there's no way that you could tarnish my relationship with Lori, her team, her company. like, you need to get out of here. And I've never really had someone have my back that way, so it was a very weird feeling that somebody stood up for me and did the right thing, because most of the time people kind of look the other way. And what he told me was, you have to have the difficult conversations first, that most people in business or in divorce, the reason that it happens is because they didn't talk about it first. Hey, we're married and everything was wonderful, but we're in year 3 of our marriage and I want to get pregnant and you don't want any children, and we didn't have this conversation because back then when everything was great, you said whatever I want. Well, now we're not talking about whatever I want, and this is a big problem because we're married, we're invested, we live together, we bought a home, and what, you don't want a family? Wait a minute, you know? And all those things could be avoided if you talk about it first. And in friendships, that's the one thing that we've never done, but Herrick also says to me, well, Lori, you love your friends like they're your family. You love them, so people love differently, and that's why they don't want to do it. But the biggest disservice that you can do is not having an open, honest conversation in any capacity of your life. And don't be scared of the results, because you know what? You'll be relieved to see what happens when you have those conversations and realize what either this person really loves you enough to say, I'm so glad that you took the time to say that to me. It hurts me that you always tell me you're gonna call me and you never do. I've had people say that to me, and I realized that I was using my words loosely. Then those are the people that hug and love you more, but the people that don't, screw them. You know, they gotta go, because you have work to do. You know, you have more difficult conversations to have for personal growth, and it's true.
I think society has just become very sensitive these days, but there are ways to also communicate. It's like, are you open to feedback? And if we're not making ourselves better and telling people some of their mistakes or what we're seeing, it's also part of mentoring. We're doing them a disfavor, like you said. So I think accountability. I want you to go back to the day you came home and you saw your equipment gone, the days that followed, and sitting wherever you were in that dark moment. What is it that pulled you through? What were the voices? What were you hearing? Who were the people who were around?
I think at that time, it was actually Natalia, because Holly, she was 19, 20, our daughter, and she now actually works with us and owns one of our businesses. I'm so proud of her. But I looked at her and I could tell she didn't want to say, but she was kind of like, what are we gonna do, right? Like, what's gonna happen, Mom? And I didn't see it when she was younger, but you realize all of a sudden, I'm Mama Bear, and I have to take care of my family. We've got to figure this out. And I don't really have an answer other than the fact that it just was like fight mode, you know, just we've got to figure this out. One of the things that I'll go back to when we talk about the business and how we grew it, I never had any kind of business experience, so when we started invoicing, it was like, okay, let's try QuickBooks, let's try this. This is what I think something should cost, and we didn't know how to place value upon our time or around a lot of the tangible things that we also provided. And in the service industry, time is money, and we just talked about that earlier. You know, people will say, I don't understand why my rental bill is so high if I only have 8 tables in XYZ. Well, the guys that go there have to get paid, the guys that come back have to get paid, the trucking fees, like there's time, and then there's time involved for the people like me that are behind it doing the work. And when it comes to money and everything, it was just like, we need this, so I'm gonna figure out how to work to get that. Not necessarily that we had a financial plan, it was just like, let's keep it in a high gear. So what else are we gonna start doing? What else are we gonna offer for our business? And that's all that really happened, is I just hustled. And we figured it out as we went, we tried things and it worked, so we do a little bit more, and then, you know, that's really, there was no magic potion to it other than being scared and just going out of sheer, you know.
Not sleeping.
Not sleeping, yeah. Yeah. We work 20-hour days quite often.
What's next for Right for the Party?
Well, we just signed a deal with Paramount Pictures. So this has been our fourth premiere with them. So we just did Babylon, Scream, Titanic, and Dungeons and Dragons this past Tuesday. And it's very exciting for me because the other day their Instagram page posted our work, and I don't ever not get excited because I'm so happy with more so the story of how we got here than where we are here now, if that makes sense. And the fact that I can still do it with my partner, my best friend, and do it and actually benefit people and help them is mind-blowing. So whatever it is that we do, just the fact that we're doing it, if that makes sense. So I think what's next is we're trying to work smarter and trying to figure out how to do that, and I'm learning that too. I don't have some secret answer to that because it's bullshit, excuse my language. If someone says there's magic, you know, we'll go to bed and I bolt out of bed at 11 o'clock because I forgot to respond to someone on an email or whatever it is. I don't know how to find that, like we talked about. But we are opening an event venue that is almost open. We have our open house on April 1st because we wanted to contribute back to the community, still have a business that ran a little bit smarter and leaner with staff, but also give people a place to have affordable parties, because I don't know about all of you, but even in this industry, I cannot believe how expensive things are. And so many people cannot afford to have these experiences, or they go into debt over it. It's like, don't do that to post a photo on Instagram, it's not worth it. So what I learned in looking for our clients was a lot of people in the San Gabriel Valley especially didn't have a place to go where they could have a brunch or anything and bring in food because they had to rent equipment. So we found the space, we built out a full kitchen, we have free parking everywhere for everyone. We included lighting and sound, a lot of the things that we have, and we're giving people access to a space that they can have affordable, safe gatherings.
So I say, Faces of Resilience. I don't know, 2.0. That doesn't have a name.
No, we gotta have the next one there so everybody can you're more than welcome to use our space for anything.
For those of us who
We
are
want people to get in there and build. Like if you are a yoga teacher, go have your class there. Like we really, that's not for us to profit so much right now. Eventually down the line, yes, that's obviously everything you should do should still make money for you when you're working. That's the whole objective. I never lose sight of that, but it's to build up an opportunity, a place for other people growing their businesses and other people to do those things and to really help people. And we do help people. So if you reach out to us and there's a way that I can help you, I promise you that we'll definitely lift you up.
And I think it goes both ways, because a lot of us here are professionals and have businesses in insurance, we're lawyers, and all of that is necessary in running your business and communication. So all of us here, the circle, we need to do what the Jewish community does, is that dollar circulates 14 times within that community before it leaves it. So we just need to be much more mindful and support each other. As I was really reading about resilience, the verb is resilier, which is actually a French word, and it really literally means bouncing back is what resilience means. And there are 7 C's to resilience. I'm going to give you some words. When I give you that word, I want you to tell me what that means to you. The first one is competence. What does competence mean to you?
That I can do it.
Bravo.
And however I can do it, I'm competent, I'm gonna make it happen.
I almost feel like that one goes with the next C. Confidence. What does confidence mean to you?
Not being as fearful. For me, some people are just confident, they exude it. For me, it's working on the things that I'm fearful of and showing that I'm confident in trying.
The next C is connection. The connection. What does connection mean to you?
Asking questions, being kind to people, and finding a way to remember that we are really all connected. So how you wake up every day and put it out there is just how it goes. I'm constantly connected to people through social media, through gatherings like this, following up with them, but that's a big one for me because I think that's what brings personal happiness for me.
I've been doing a lot of reading, a lot of it is self-help, a lot of them are just inspirational. Young Pueblo is one of them, Clarity and Communication, does just a deep dive on the self-love and to not find attachments, because attachments are not good. You need to find connections with people. So it's meaningful connections, super, super important. What does character mean to you?
That you do right by your moral compass, that you are giving back. I think somebody has character. Somebody has character if they are
Tornado and
good.
Yeah. Contribution. What does contribution mean to you?
To me, that's actually they're all wonderful, but contribution is a responsibility. And that doesn't mean that it just has to be monetarily. If someone here has a business and you haven't met them, or maybe if you have met them, you can contribute to their business by sharing it on Instagram. You can contribute by finding someone that's talking about something and saying, I know so-and-so that is an attorney that practices XYZ. Contribute by sharing those connections.
Coping. What does coping look like to you?
Tears sometimes. I think coping, bringing this back to business, is very lonely. And again, I don't feel guilt, but I do feel a lot of loneliness. This year, I told my husband more than ever that I felt lonely because I had to separate myself to get the results that I wanted from a lot of situations that weren't good for me. And part of that was socially. My friends, oh, you want to go have a glass of wine after work, or you want to go do this? And I was putting myself in situations that were so easy because I didn't want to let other people down, but I was letting myself down, and that led to me not looking my best, not feeling my best, and taking away from my family and my business. And when we started our fitness journey a couple months ago again, I said exactly this on my Instagram page. I said, if I treat this experience, getting up and coming to the gym every day at 6 a.m., the way that I treat my businesses, I will be so successful that I will get to where I need to be.
I have to share, those of you who've known me for a long time, I was married, and it was in the market crash of 2008 where my husband at the time had to go work out of state. And it was a commuter marriage, and it was not easy at all, but it became, it was me taking care of the kids, me making all the money, because he bought a radio station, okay? He never came back. He started a family over there. So at the time, that was a really, really hard time for me. I sat there, and I remember I would never cry in front of my kids. And they were small, by the way. And my doctor said, as I was getting my blood pressure pills, because I got hypertension through all of it, he says, you need to teach your kids that you're human. And crying is human, is what he told me. So I didn't come home. As long as you got back to center and do what you needed to do and be resilient, and I raised them by myself, working on my own, and I have 3 amazing children, by the way, so contributors to the society as well. Control, what does control look like for you?
I don't know, that's probably maybe a work in progress for me. I think maybe attribute that to self-control. It kind of leads into what I was just talking about. I'm not a controlling person by nature, so it's a weird one for me to kind of...
I look at it as what you do is so high-end, it's quality control. I mean, you
Quality
do
control is
so
good.
many amazing things, and they really do have, they set a bar. I lost my train of thought here. Mentoring. So I'm still around. I'm at AltaMed now. It's a nonprofit. It's really, for me, one of the places I felt like I need to be, because it's a passion project for me. But I also see there's a whole new generation of young ladies and of professionals coming up that I need to connect to, because I don't know half of them. And what's the connection? And mentoring, by the way. We talk about politics. Where's our bench? Where's our bench? Our new generation of good people that we're going to elect to office, Latinas, etc. What does that look like for you, mentoring someone within your company, your daughters, to take over your business?
Well, I mentor them every day. I treat all of my staff like they're my children. You know, it's from the younger side. We have this one new girl, Emily. She's right out of college. She's been with us for a year. And I was sharing with you earlier that she messed up pretty bad yesterday. And I sat her down, and I was not mad that she messed up or made the mistake. It was how she handled it that she needed to learn a little bit more about. And I told her, I said, the one thing that you will remember from me 10 years from now is that I cared about you, and you were going to thank me because I make you write those thank you cards. You're gonna thank me because I'm holding you accountable. You're gonna thank me because I told you your skirt is too short and it's inappropriate. And because the one thing that I will say that my mom did do well with me was etiquette. You know, I acknowledged my teachers. I acknowledged the people at church. I acknowledged the people that helped me. I had to write thank you cards. I received, every holiday I had my cards with my name on it, and all the stationery and everything, and I used to get so exhausted of it. But she also taught me that you dress for the job that you want. And she didn't care if I went to McDonald's to get a job, I was gonna wear a suit. And that is one thing that stuck with me. She used to make me take the bus when all my friends had cars, and I was so embarrassed. And when you look back, it's like it's nothing to be shameful for. In fact, now public transportation is sexy. It's so incredible how times change. And I think that for every business owner, when you start to feel like you're in a low space, you need to remember that everything changes and it's a cycle and doesn't necessarily repeat itself. And all the things, if you look at the business of Uber, when they talked about it, oh, you're gonna ride in a car with strangers? Hell no, it's never gonna make it. Look at it, look at Netflix, look at all these things that people find absolutely crazy. And she did me a great, it was very valuable in that she held me accountable to do that. So with Emily and my staff, I do treat them like my children. You're not supposed to do that, but I love on them. I know when they're struggling, I bring in extra lunch. I send them thank you gifts. I take good care of them so that they feel good from the inside out, because I want them to feel good before anything that we take on.
I told you this earlier, is good leaders don't talk about how good they are. They talk about how good their staff is. That's a good leader, by the way. How many of you are business owners here? How many of you have been in business less than a year? Okay, so what do you tell new business owners on your business, what you started, what you did, wrong and right, by the way? The rest of you are going to be fine, by the way.
The first most important thing, but even for anyone with especially, is don't be afraid to ask people questions. If somebody offers you the time, let's say that you went to a mastermind for whatever industry you're in, and they said, if you have a question, call me. Or if they said something that inspires you, look them up, read about them, figure it out, and create solid relationships no matter what you're doing, because that's going to be where everything is going to be the start. And if you think about it, and this is another lesson I learned from Dan, he was talking about how everyone's obsessed with gifting, right? Like if you look at all these brands, makeup brands, what do they pay Kylie for? To unbox makeup brands because it looks sexy and it's gonna make all these little girls go run and buy this product that they don't even know is good for them because it's an influencer lifestyle. So he was talking about us being new in business, and let's just say, I don't know, that you wanted this client right in front of you, and you didn't know how to get there. And how do you get his attention because he's not paying attention? Look at his core circle. Go on his Instagram, it's easy, you guys, there's information about everybody anywhere, right? Oh, he's got a dog, he loves this dog. Oh my gosh, his wife, he's obsessed with her and she likes rosé. Oh, he loves tickets to the Long Beach Grand Prix because he goes there for the last 20 years, amazing, right? So then you know what you do? Instead of sending that Amazon card, if you want to get your business in somewhere, go after his wife. I realize that you like this rosé. I'm really trying to get a hold of your husband because I think that I can provide a value to him. I want him to know that I'm a good listener. Here's a handwritten card, please. May I schedule time for lunch? In this case with Dan, the guy didn't hear back. He went after everything. Finally, it was the wife that said, how can you turn this guy away when he's really putting the work in and all he wants is some face-to-face time? Ended up doing like some $20 million deal with him. So as a new business owner, if I would have heard the conversations that I learned from Dan last year, it would have probably taken me on a whole different level of what we're doing. Not that I wanted more, but I would have done it smarter and differently by building those core connections and learning how to do it right versus making mistakes that also are financially expensive. Sending people junk they're gonna throw in the trash, don't do it. What they want is authenticity and connection.
So you gave us a little lens into how you compete because it's gotta be a competitive business.
And I'm competitive, I'm gonna play.
And I wanna know what is the edge and what makes you excel and get that deal?
I do what I say, and I deliver, and I think that's a personal thing. It doesn't even have to be in business, but I do what I say. And if I can't do it, I've learned that it's okay to say that I can't. Like what you're asking me for just isn't reasonable or it's not doable. And this is a silly example, but it just happened last week. A restaurant in Hollywood called me, and they had a celebrity coming in, and they needed a last-minute favor. They only wanted to spend a certain amount, and I was like, there is absolutely no way I can help you. Even if I want to help you, my labor getting there, I can't do it. And she was like, okay, we'll find someone else, thanks. Okay. I mean, I hate to say no, but I felt, An hour later, she calls back, I can't find anybody to do it, please, okay, we'll do your rate. Well, had I tried to say yes and please her, and which is what the old Lori would have done, I would have put somebody out on my team, I would have gone into overtime and come out of pocket, I would have pissed off my husband, right? Because he would have been like, that's dumb, why are you going so out of your way when they have the money to pay for it and X, Y, Z. It's not a charity, it's not a favor, this is a running business, they just don't want to make it important. So I've learned that there's a power in no, and there's power in boundaries. And my boundaries look different than other people's, but I'm not embarrassed or ashamed anymore to say that that's just not feasible for what they're asking.
The type of business that you're in is definitely not an easy one because it's event planning, but you're also doing weddings and events that people are putting all their money into.
Lots of money.
How do you deal with the difficult clients or the bridezilla or whatever they're called, that are doing like a super high-end wedding and all of the personalities and stress that come with it?
That's a great question. So I try not to do weddings anymore. I have a team that does it. I won't even lie about it. Herrick knows he still kind of can deal with it, and there's a couple of reasons. I don't care what someone's budget is, right? I don't care, they don't need to spend a ton of money. A lot of people call us and say, I thought you only do X, Y, Z. If we're available to help people and their budget works and we can do it, 100% I'm gonna do it, you know? But if it's a bride that's sitting there and she's got her handbag that's so expensive and she's being really rude to her parents and yet doesn't want to pay for this but wants the Instagram show-off wedding and it's all the right, if it doesn't feel good, it's still my time. I'd rather have beans and rice before I'm taking something that's gonna put me in that situation because then the best that we do, she's gonna tear down my team no matter what. So it's my responsibility to have their back. And it starts with me. And I feel like that's a huge, huge one.
Do you ever warn the groom?
No, but I've got some stories that when the end days are done and all my time is over, I'm gonna write a really good book. I've got some stories.
What is your dream event that you strive for?
Wow. You know, I'm not just saying this, but to be honest, I've lived my dream. I think, you know, every business has a point when something changes, right? And hopefully that's always that it changes for the good. But for me, a pivotal point was when we got the call for Drake. When Drake called and asked for us to do an event to bid for them, I was like, I mean, you better believe there was screaming and jumping on the bed and running around. I mean, because all you really want is to be acknowledged for the good work you do. And when somebody that can have anything asks for something that you're doing, that's incredible. But also, his compliment to us was that we move with a lot of love. And he watches, and he's successful because he watches. That, you know, he's an incredibly powerful man, but he is present with me every step of the way. And that taught me something. And after that, it made us very credible. So we've been lucky enough to kind of do everything. We've traveled all over the world doing this. We've worked, you know, some of the most elaborate events where we get to really design and be free and creative. And we also do a lot of galas and charity and philanthropy. So I've kind of done everything that we wanted to, and I'm very, very grateful for that.
I want to see you continue to succeed, Loriann.
Thank you.
Walk us through a day in the life of Loriann. Wake up at what time?
Right now, I get up at 5 in the morning to go to the gym. If I don't do it, I'll never get to it. And I'm not gonna lie, in the last, 3-4 months, I've cried a lot. I've had a really hard time with me because I'm going to be 46. I just went to the doctor last week because a lot of my friends are getting sick. They're getting, they have cancer, their parents are dying. People around me are changing, we're getting older, and it makes you stop and look at yourself, right? Like, am I living a life of purpose? Am I fulfilled? I'm happy, I really am, I have everything that I want, but I cry because I'm like, am I doing enough? Am I doing this fast enough? Am I taking away time from my kids that now I need to spend with them? Like, I'm always questioning myself, and I'm very, very insecure. So I'm trying to do better. So what a day goes by for me is now, I get up, I go to the gym, and I start with something that makes me feel good. And I've noticed it really is not cliche. It makes all the difference. I wish I would have done it, 20 years ago, but I'm okay with just starting now. I get on my computer, and before 7 o'clock, I usually send a good 200 or 300 emails out. My team wakes up every day. We use something called Basecamp, and they wake up with all of their tasks, and everything is like assigned, and their follow-ups. And then on any given day, we usually have between 2 and 3 meetings and walkthroughs on venues. And I get about 1,800 to 2,000 texts a day. So it's a lot of maintenance and a lot of work, and it is very well worth it, but it is an incredible handful. And I don't, a lot of people don't see that, it's a lot of sacrifice. So I'm trying to find how to even hand more of that off, how to hire more. And believe it or not, you guys, we can't find good people to hire. Mm-hmm. We had interviews scheduled the other day. 3 people did not show up. 3! And that's time out of our day, so it's just the whole thing, but it's like, I feel so defeated. And I'm like, we pay great, we pay their cell phones, we do insurance, what is wrong? But we can't find the balance. So I've been crying a lot on a search for like, how do we grow and how do we get to where we need to be? Because I feel very stuck. Not so much in the opportunities, but I can't take the opportunities if I can't continue to grow the strong team behind us.
It is very difficult to find unicorns these days for any of you who have been looking for staff. I was hiring people in social media and in communications, and I would get a great candidate, and they would say, well, I want to backpack through Europe while I work for you. And soft skills, by the way, for those of you who are parents, to teach your children soft skills, how to say please and thank you. And I am going to tell you, share a story. Camila, at 8 years old, it was always, dile por favor y gracias, por favor y gracias. Our parents are always telling us, sit up straight, cierra las piernas. It's like my father right here, okay? She goes to Mexico and she's telling my cousin, Tia, me das cereal, por favor y gracias. She said, that was my Camila. But I want to get back to not your age, but the trigger and your tears. And the vulnerability that you showed us right now. And I want to just do a little deeper dive on what you're doing about it, to really reflect and not feel guilty, and just sit back and tell us what goes through your head when you do have those moments. And I'll cry with you, by the way.
Well, I'm emotional as it is because, I'm very passionate about everything. I'm very big in everything I do. If I'm happy, I'm happy. If I'm sad, I'm sad. There's really not an in-between with me, which I think is a plus, because I'd much rather be like me than trying to figure out somebody that's not consistent. But a lot of my tears and my emotion come with, I think, growth. And when we did this before, Anna, when you asked me the first time, I said no. I didn't want to do it because what if I say something that's not interesting to you? Or what if I'm talking about something that you think is stupid or silly? And then it's like, why do I feel that way? Why am I so scared of being judged? And it's still something that I deal with now because I don't mind sharing anything. There's no secret out there. For business, there's enough work for all of us. As being in the event industry, being a makeup, or whatever, being an attorney, there are enough people that need all of our services. So there's really no competition. But part of my tears also come from people. I'm still kind of scarred because a lot of people have just been so mean, and I never found my circle. I didn't find my people until much later in life. And I don't know why, and that's one of the things that I talk about with my kids. It's like, let's find your people. Let's get you involved in what interests you. Frankie likes to sing. Let's place you around people that are better than you so that you're encouraged. And I think that I didn't have that so much. So when I'm telling the story and I'm learning and speaking, and it just always just kind of makes me really rethink. And I don't take for granted that I'm actually able to sit up here and speak to people like you that are taking time to be here with me. That's absolutely incredible to me, and it's very humbling.
Loriann, you did a great.
I just want to give us a few minutes until they kick us out. I want to make sure that the audience has an opportunity to ask them questions.
Okay.
Anything you want. So,
Yeah, Q&A.
I was just curious, Lori or Loriann?
Lori, it's fine.
You said you work in corporate. I was just wondering where and if you could share about how that has
Oh, 100%.
manifested and manifested itself in what you do.
I worked for a company called Supply Frame for Gordon Marshall in the Marshall School of Business, and I worked as a data architect. So we worked with contract manufacturers and OEMs that built bombs for the military.
Oh, wow.
And that's actually a very good question because my boss's name was Steve Flagg. I was the youngest in the crew. It was a startup. He used to have Marshall Industries, which was huge, and then everything happened, and he started up a new part out of his garage. So I would get up at 3 in the morning to take the baby to the babysitter, drive to Pasadena, start at 5 o'clock, work 5 a.m. to 2 p.m., and then cocktail every night. And what I learned from him is we'd go on a trip, and I was kind of used to being like, oh, she's the young mom, she's this, and he'd be like, come on, Lori, let's go, on that plane, in heels, to the meeting, and then they'd take us out to happy hour after, and it was like, you drink and you hang with the big boys, and you get up and you do it all again the next day if we had business meetings, and they taught me a very corporate mindset of no excuses. And I'm so grateful because, wouldn't you say, Eric, it was like, they trust me with everything, but was like, I don't care, do what you want, get the work done, but you show up and you show up all the time. And I really think that was what took it to a whole nother level that I didn't realize when I left the job. I didn't remember that I had all that in me, but it came out when the time was there. And Herrick says that a lot of people spend the rest of their life deprogramming what they were taught when they were younger. So I think it's a combination of learning what you took from the good things and remembering the things that weren't good and trying somehow to use that as a learning lesson. But being on time and accountability and all of that were probably the biggest lessons that I learned. And they were wonderful people. I would probably still be there had I not left. But I'm so glad that I left. I don't think I would have ended up as happy.
I'm enjoying this. Great.
Thank you.
I have a 2-year-old business, and it's just us working together. And I appreciate you talking about a couple, working together.
It's hard.
Yes, it's really hard.
Eric, I'm sure they're gonna ask you, how do you do it, right? They want to
Yes.
know how you work together more than anything.
Yeah, and it's great. We're enjoying it. So what I would want to know next is how do you scale? Because now you went from just you two to having staff and employees, and I guess that's like what we need to learn how to scale it and hire people and manage
That's
them.
an incredible
That
question.
next level.
The first thing is you need to decide where it is that you need some help, and you need to hire someone that's hungry, and you just need to do it. So, like for me, the girls work full-time all the time on just as project managers. I hired one, and then I realized, wow, I can double my income by having her. But the fear and the mindset is like, if I have another body to feed, how am I going to do that? But if you're able to have somebody help with the responsibilities that you need, it starts there. And Teresa was the girl that we first hired that was my first true hire, because she sent me an email and was just like, I'm so eager, and I'll answer phones, and I'll take FedEx boxes. And I had said to her, I don't know if I'm gonna have enough work for you, right? Oh my gosh. 5 months later, we had to hire somebody else. I'm not lying, it just happens that way, because then it takes away from you so that you're so much better. What business are you in?
We do,
Workforce development.
yeah, workforce development,
So that's,
right, manage grants.
but then that you also then are client facing, right? So you're maxing out, and I don't know about you, but it's mentally exhausting. So then you're not putting your best foot forward. So it's almost like you need another outside salesperson. The moment that you do that, and that person does your follow-up and starts with those calls and doing some of that legwork, those, just like the old school process of having a lead and a sales lead, it works. And you just have to start with that. And if you don't want to make a big commitment, offer someone 3 days a week.
I have a person already, she's been calling me, she wants to come on board. what she
I
wants
would,
to
I would
do.
just try it, just go for it. And then you can learn from her because you already know that you're not quite sure what you need. That's a stepping stone. And I'm sure that she's okay with it too, knowing that you're growing. So that I would just get it done. But make sure that before you do it, you talk to someone in HR and make sure you're doing it all right to protect yourself. I have a great resource that's really affordable on that too, if you need it. Mind blowing, and she does everything for us, and it's like an hourly rate, so it's nothing crazy, and it's doable because a lot of people are scared, so they just don't do it at all.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, I have a question, more personal than business, but we are having our centennial celebration next year, so I do need to talk to you about that and your, what you offer. But you mentioned, you know, you're turning 46 and how things are different. I will be 50 this year, and my own child is graduating from high school and turn 18. And so I wanted to see what advice you have for someone who's been so invested in that transition, how you say you're kind of there right now, trying to find that space.
I think for me, I looked at people around me and I looked at what I was focusing on. So like on Instagram, I scroll on there sometimes for absolutely no reason. I'm like, what am I even looking at, right? But what are the things that keep popping up that catch my eye? And it was women in their personal life, not business stuff. So I was seeing my friends go to the gym, seeing my friends go to church, things that I was like, oh, I missed that. Or wow, I'm seeing the results from watching her on Instagram every day going to the gym, and 3 months later she looks like she feels good. My advice would be to take a different look at what's around you and look for some things that genuinely interest you, because there's nothing wrong with that. We're just always so busy worrying about everybody else, worrying about the graduation, worrying about getting your baby off to where they need to be for the next part, but there's always going to be a responsibility associated with that. And to everyone's, even though you hear it, you said it, health is wealth. So mentally, I think that has a lot to do with my physical body. I've never been this big in my life, didn't like it. And it wasn't that I was being lazy, by all means I'm not lazy, but I wasn't doing the things and feeding my soul enough to keep me disciplined to fulfill my own personal commitments. So I would, you know, even like book clubs, things that I thought were silly, they're not. I'm like, wow, I want to try that because I want a different form of connection with other people that are not just in my industry. And I think that's a great way to start. Ask someone to lunch and coffee. Like I've been doing it, it's been wonderful. Yeah, it really is. It really is. A good book, but just things that I before thought were silly because there was no time for them. Make time for something that you've been putting off.
I journal, by the way, very quickly, and it's in my notes. I pick up my phone and I just put my thoughts down and I come back to it. That's been really, really good for me, by the way.
Thank you so much for being so vulnerable
Yes.
and approachable, and we just feel like I'm feeling everything you're saying, and I love it. Thank you. Following up on scaling, that was my question. So you talked about, you know, you lost everything. It didn't seem like it was that long ago. We've had COVID, and yet you have just like exploded and blossomed and blossomed and blossomed. How did you go from that nothingness to all of a sudden where you are, because it wasn't so long ago? We're talking about scaling, but also how did you decide you're going to do this kind of business? I mean, it's all event planning, but yet it must be so broad because you're able to have so many clients and grow into millions from having nothing.
Yes, well, so we do planning, but we're more of like a production company. So we actually fabricate and build things. So we own a lighting company. That's what my husband was good at. So when I came in here and I said, Anna, you need lighting. The beautiful part is I have control over it because we own it. So if she doesn't have enough budget and I want to knock something back to show them, we've done a lot of that where I'll throw something in so they can see it, and the next time they're like, okay, I get what the investment is, right? But we, you know, you see step and repeats, you see special effects, you see props. We actually do that in-house. So when someone comes to us, there's never really been quite a company like us that did so much of that. And the only reason that we grew it that way was because people wouldn't show up and they would flake on me, and then I looked stupid. So I was like, I need to figure out how to never let that happen again, because I need to come through for these people. And scrambling at the last minute, isn't it? You know, and especially children, kids, birthday parties. So what I started doing as we started scaling on the other side was realizing that it was taking a toll on my husband. So we had to start finding guys for the warehouse and to unload the trucks, because time is money. And again, I didn't understand the concept until I started working for Dan, where he was like, why are you doing a job that you can pay somebody $20 to do, Lori? And I was like, because if I do it myself, I'm saving money. He was like, no, you absolutely are not. You're being stupid, you know? But the idea of me having more overhead scared me. But, you know, the idea of having another truck scared me, like all of it. But he was like, do it, you gotta do it, this is what you need to do, write it down on a napkin. And believe it or not, I did everything he told me. And you know, I just got lucky with someone that was a good person to follow and lead. Scaling is hard, and finding the right person for your brand is hard. Finding the right person to be on your side in your most intimate space. You know, it's my business that's intimate because it's the ins and outs of how we do everything. And learning to have the boundaries between you're an employee of mine, we're a family business, but we're not family. How do you usually learn that? By somebody screwing you over, and it's terrible, but it has to happen. It happens to everybody. I'd be lying to you if I said it didn't hurt, you know? But you eventually, now I see when people are in their 40s and 50s, I never used to get it, but I see why they have thicker skin, where they can handle certain circumstances like that with grace and with education and how not to have it happen again. And a big answer is like, you cut ties. If it's not working for you, stop it. Try something else. Keep going. Until you have exhausted it, you don't have an excuse. You gotta keep trying. Find someone part-time, but just things that you can give them little tasks, and you'll find that you might be able to refocus again and do even more with whatever it is you're trying to do. Scaling is important.
I think you might have kind of already asked it, but I'm going to ask it anyhow because I'm going through it right now. So my name is Roz Corona. I am the founder of the Chingona community, and my reasoning for that was not just to network, but because I do think that there's a huge gap with women, right? At the end of the day, I think we're our worst enemy. A lot of us in this room are mothers, a lot of us in this room are entrepreneurs, a lot of us in this room are powerful, but at the same token, that comes with the challenges. The challenge that I'm going through right now is a little bit of scaling. I mean, I have so many wonderful mentors in this room, so it's fantastic because the aura is very much positive. But what would you offer as advice when the haters do come? Because they're coming and they're in my own circle. And I am learning to just let it roll, but at the same token, I'm very emotional with cancer. I cry probably daily these days, which is not anything uncommon because it could be excitement tears.
Yes.
It's not all just upset, you know, because of hurt. But what would be one word of advice for you to give to me to keep going, right? Because it is hard to keep going sometimes. But when that level does happen, outside of just maybe letting it roll off, it's easier said than done.
Sure.
But what would be one word of advice or something that you'd give to me to get through that?
Know that it's okay to feel like that, because just because you're powerful and good at what you do does not mean that you're not human and a woman and a mom and that you have feelings. And my recommendation though would be careful who you speak about those feelings with. So I am very surprised that I don't publicly get a lot of haters on my social media, considering how much I post, but every now and then if it's something that someone's passionate about, they'll make a smart remark, right? Whatever. I had one last week. It brought me to my knees. I forget, it was something so stupid that I posted about something when Herrick and I went out to dinner, and she was like, F you, horse-looking bee, like this whole thing, you know, this thing. I mean, it was mean. So it definitely was someone that I know or that's pretending to be somebody. I don't get them often, so keep in mind, it's like one out of how many, and I was like, ugh, right? Because that's your natural reaction. Nobody wants to be spoken to that way. I left her unread, cried to my daughter about it, right? But you just have to keep going because there's far more of them than you know, and they're usually people sitting right next to you, and they're envious and jealous because confidence, the more confident that I became, the more that it bothered people. And I noticed the same thing. Some of my circles changed. You know, I have friends that support me all the time, and then friends that don't say anything until they need something, of course. But I've learned not to have expectations. But if it doesn't make me feel good, I still cry about it. I get over it, and I'm like, you know what, screw it. Obviously, I'm doing something right. It sounds like something your parents used to tell you, but people don't talk about you if you're not doing something that they care about. And it's true. And you know, even in my marriage, when Herrick and I think that over time, people really didn't think that we would make it, both in our marriage and in our business. And so now there's been smart remarks that I don't think people realize come out of their mouth, like, oh wow, you guys did it. Wow, thanks, you know. But I would say that you don't have to feel not bad about it because it's really, really horrible and it's shitty and people can be so incredibly mean. And if you ever feel like that, shoot, give me a call, I'll make you laugh. I'm really funny. But
she is, by the way. I want to add one more thing. Roz, it's really good to meet you in person, by the way. I think never stop being vulnerable, by the way. So, because you will be vulnerable with certain people that you feel are gonna be your friends when they turn around and they just,
Yeah.
like, they're not your friends, they
Don't let it harden you.
they do things you would never imagine. And so, and you just gotta let them off the train, like, this is where you get off, see you later. Put them behind and even though they're in the same circle.
And they won't fight for you. You know, if somebody genuinely, what I've learned with my friends that I've been friends with 20 years now is like, if I hurt them or they hurt my feelings, which really doesn't happen, I don't fight with my friends. You know, think about it, you don't fight with your friends. But if we had a disagreement, the friend that comes and says, I'm really sorry, Roz, I did not mean to say that, or I didn't mean to sound like I wasn't supportive or excited for you, is the kind of friend you keep, you know, or I'm here to listen if you just, do you want my advice or do you want me to listen to you? But the friend that just leaves and doesn't give a shit, doesn't give a shit. So I needed to learn to stop chasing people that didn't matter, and I spent way too many years of my life, and that was probably my biggest regret, chasing people that didn't care about me. Because I wanted to fit in, because I felt like it was the right thing. I don't know what that reason was. It felt some kind of void. But now that I'm more confident, I've also noticed other people, like, you know, they don't have value to add to me, and I'm okay with that. And they don't like it that we're doing okay, and that's okay too. My family comes first.
Thank you.
Hi, Olivia.
Hi, Joanna Diaz.
Hi, Joanna.
Thank you so much for speaking and so authentically about your experience with your company, your family, your relationship. How do you, or at what point when you were working with your husband, like at what point did you discover your strengths and weaknesses? Like what were your kind of challenges there? Because, you know, often working with couples, you know,
It's hard.
it's hard. So.
That's a really good question. I used to get mad at him for things that I would expect him to do because I expected us to both be doing the same thing. Not to be mean, it was like, okay, this is our business, so here's what we need to do, right? So when I started realizing that we were losing business because he wasn't very responsive on emails and he wasn't good at it, instead of me saying, I'm gonna help you or find someone to help you, I was like, what the hell, like you spelled that wrong and you didn't get back to them in time, because then people would come back and complain to me. Like I tried to reach out to Aaron to DJ this XYZ and I didn't hear from him. So I was like, we need this job, like why aren't you responsive? Because it needs to be now, you know, in turbo mode. And that's just, you know, he's laid back, he moves slower than me, right? So that was one of them for sure. I realized that, you know, it wasn't his strength and I couldn't make him all of a sudden be great at sending these 3-paragraph wordy salesy emails. But the moment I would put him in front of somebody, he was wonderful. He was a great listener, he did what he said, and he was great. So it took me years, probably 4 or 5 years in, and it's still very recent, because even now I'm like, why did you forget? It's on the calendar. And he's like, you know I'm gonna forget, I'm gonna fight about it all the time. So then what I did is I started assigning his responsibilities to one of my assistants. And I have her follow up with him, and she does the work, and she does the admin, and it took away a lot of the headache, and I know that not everyone has the privilege of necessarily doing that, but in time we will. But now there's virtual assistants, there's so many other things. So I needed to let him be good at what he was good at, and I needed to stop expecting him to be fair because he didn't do that to me, you know. And when I let him be good at what he was at, I realized that I wasn't tearing him down anymore, and I wasn't trying to do it, but it's what it was making him feel like. And then we became more successful because it was more fun again, and we were more grounded and more aligned. It's easy to do. It's easy to tell somebody what they should be doing better. It's just how we think, but it doesn't mean it's the right way. And I'm definitely not right all the time. I just felt like we had to figure it out faster, and he wasn't doing it fast enough, but that wasn't necessarily the right answer. And it is still hard. You know, we are together all day, all the time. So I always tell people that when we don't love each other, we still like each other, because you have to. We've been best friends. I've known him since I was 17 years old. So, you know, it's a work in progress. You just missed the biggest compliment. Where were you? You walked right out of the room.
That's why she said it, because I wasn't in the room.
I remember this wonderful story, Christina, I don't know if you remember, it was about 20 years ago. It's been a while.
You're dating, you mean here?
I remember you invited Daryl and I to the Biltmore. It was one of the hopes, I think it was our first masquerade ball. And she had the premier table, and we were so excited, we were all dressed up in masks and everything. And Christina and Vic, which was her first husband, wasn't there. And then the doors fly open, and she comes with this beautiful, she looks like Cinderella. Her hair's a little bit whisked. Remember this?
Yes, I do remember.
And I looked at her, I go, are you okay? And she said,
like that, because she was the big sponsor. And then Vic was on the other side. I go, what did you do to her? And then he said, oh my gosh, I wanted to throw her out on the freeway. And I tell Daryl, why do you always guys want to throw us out on the freeway? Daryl said, we've been fighting all the way, or arguing. And then he goes, the second you walk into the events, everybody goes, that's really a big talent, right, Christina? I have to applaud you. It was perfection. To our men, I have to tell you, we applaud you. I wish that we would ask them to be very silent to me, right? So Andrew, keep doing what you do. I've seen, once I've called her and I saw her very emotional too, because she's been all over the world lately. And one morning I called her very, very early and she was very emotional. I hope I can share this. And I said, how are you doing? She goes, Anna, how did you know? And I said, I don't know, sometimes I just have this time to call her. And she said, I'm so sad because I left early this morning and Hendrik didn't give me a kiss goodbye. And sometimes I'll call Daryl too and I'm like, did you leave? It's the little things, right? Like, I'll be back. And I was like, I was gonna call that guy. But the little things, right?
Yeah, you don't want it to get stale.
The ones that, all of us that work together, it is such a challenge. I commend all of us, it's really.
And Anna, too, it's always the women, we're always the bad guys. It definitely wasn't Daryl, it was the bad guy. Never.
But I do want to say something about Anna is that she just knows. She's like, there's this motherly, nurturing part of her that you just must be having the shittiest day you don't want to share with anybody. All of a sudden your phone rings and it's Anna. She's like, I'm thinking about you. And you're like, bye!
I want to jump on this if I can add something about that. And actually, this is another good takeaway. And I'm sharing with all of you a lot of these things that I'm saying. I'm actually happy hearing them come out of my mouth, but it wasn't that easy. It was when I started working with Dan that changed it, because I was around a bunch of leaders with a different mindset, because the people that go to these masterminds that we produce for him are all there to be better, right? So you're not in a room of people that are holding each other back. It's all like, I'm here because I want to do the next step, go to the next level. But with Anna, every day when she wakes up on Facebook, she posts something from the Bible, a scripture, something of her faith. And the reason I'm sharing that story is that, say, when you're going back to social media, sometimes just because if you're a new business and people are not commenting on what you're doing and you're so excited and you get like 3 likes or something, it's not that people are not watching. First, the algorithm sucks, but it's not that they're watching. It just may not be something that they feel inclined to comment on, or they don't like to comment on anything, but it feels personal because it's mine and I want my friends to comment, but they don't know that they're hurting you by doing this. So many things. But by posting and being consistent, and every single day she consistently posts about the Lord and about her faith, the one person that may be reading it that day when you wake up, is that may be the message that speaks to you. It may not be every day. You may not care some days at all. You may not even see it in the feed. But for me, she had posted something, and that was the day I think you would call, and I was just like, oh man, that spoke to me today, because messaging is different and our moods are different. But the consistency of what she's putting out there is consistent to who she is, and it helps people indirectly. And just because they don't take the time to comment on it all the time doesn't mean that it wasn't a great way to wake up and receive the love and the messaging that she wants to send out. And please apply that in your movements too, and know, and that was a hard one for me, because I expected that if I said it or put it out there, people were gonna comment back. But then who has time to be commenting all day on Instagram anyways? It's not even what I wanted, but it made me feel like people didn't care. That's not true. They're watching you, they're listening, they're watching your moves, they're seeing what you're up to. Everybody is busy. Everyone's lives are busy, and social media isn't important to other people like it might be to us for our business. So remember that the words and what you put out there is important and it matters. And I just wanted to share that, because every day you do it and you show up and you share, and it's beautiful.
Support each other, without a doubt. Check in on each other. Ross, you reached out to me about a year ago and I never got back to you. And I will publicly apologize, because this is what we're talking about, is that somebody reaches out to amplify their network, get a little bit of a piece of you, and say, what can I do to go to the next level? So I will be completely attentive to you today, okay? I'll buy you a drink too. I think we're ready for drinks now, speaking of drinks, right?
We've extended our stay here, and it's just gonna begin. We have happy hour drinks, and you get more time with these 2 phenomenal women. This is not the end. What we plan to do is give them a little break, and in a month, we're going to do a day in the life of Loriann. We're gonna follow her throughout that day. We're gonna make it so real.
It's fun.
And Christina, let me tell you, she has a journey all her own. It's phenomenal. I vacation
And
from
a
Valley
birthday
to
to celebrate.
Spain.
And a
to
birthday to
Russia.
celebrate too.
Yes, you've been everywhere.
I want to thank Loriann because she really just took us beyond the curtains and she opened up and I am like, wow.
Can I leave you with one last bit of advice that I almost caught myself doing? This is, and I hope that you take this away with you. This was one thing that I just realized that I was almost going to do. When she said, thank you, Loriann, I started to shake my head to say like, no, thank you for thanking me and thank you for having me here. We're taught so often not to be confident, right? I teach my kids all the time. If someone says your dress is pretty, say thank you. You don't have to say, oh, it's old, or oh, I've had this, or oh, these old shoes. If someone says, Ruthie, you did an amazing job. If someone says, Anna, thank you for having me here, or your dinner or your home is lovely, thank you. That's enough, because guess what? You're commanding some respect, you're giving it back, you're saying you're confident in your choices, and you don't have to feel like you have to explain why you're doing good at whatever it is that you're doing or why someone likes it. It's fully okay just to say thank you and give them a hug and welcome what they're giving to you. And I never did that. I'm working on it. I still caught myself right now. So if I can share that with you, I hope it's helpful and be proud and excited for what you do every moment.
Yeah.